Tuesday morning. I don't know what today's date is. What is it? It's the 17th of March. Well, it's a long way to go until April. We're still in the middle of the thing. So basically, I need to get you guys started on this task. So I'm going to start you with the task today. And it's going to take us to, we're going to have to swap around our syllabus a little bit in order to do it. So it's a research task, so it means you'll be able to do it from home. It will be marked, and it's going to count into the final totals. Wow, it takes us a long time to get here. So what we would do after this point, we would do marketing, and then we would do strategic alliances. Strategic alliances is the different kinds of relationships that a company can have with expanding, and like how companies work together when they, internationally. But we're not going to be able to do that, I think, until after we can have a test on it. And now the computer is freezing up. That's cute. Try again. There. So what we'll do is we're going to swap it around, and we'll put this after what we were doing. So here is the outline 7.8, general marketing features, and then the next thing is strategic alliances, but we're going to take that out, and we're going to move that around, and we're going to do innovation. And that way we can do the tasks that we want to do now. So there will be all these things, factors that impact on the success of an innovation or moving, trying to enter a new market abroad. And hopefully we'll be able to do something and get one more task done before we come back to school, which I still think we will probably get to do this semester, I hope. I don't know, the world's kind of going sideways. Although, Facebook's becoming funny again, so that's good. So basically, weeks 9 and 10 will be switched around with weeks 11 and 12, which will help us do this task. And then the task should be due about, if we come back on the 5th, it'll be due at that time. To start the task though, you're gonna have to come up with a product that you would want to sell in Vietnam. So that's the one trick of this task. In the meantime, I'm going to go through the book today in the growth and marketing section. So we did look at branding a little bit yesterday, but I'm going to go to page 38. So if you have your book, please look at page 38. There are some choices that are on this task, but you really don't have to choose them, but you do need to let me know what you're going to choose. So, boy, there's a lot of stuff on innovation. So here's the task. which I'm going to upload. It says, Win a grant, that means money from, not loans. Win a grant of government support to expand your business overseas. So you're going to imagine you're an Australian company. Imagine the Australian government has proposed a scheme to give grant money to domestic Australian companies who invest in Vietnam. So your research is about Vietnam. Your job is to use the ideas about innovation that we've explored in class, pest analysis, also product timing, cost of entering the market, marketing strategy, which is what we're doing now, local distribution, and IT infrastructure, as well as intellectual property law, and use this research to make a report about what it would be like to enter the market in Vietnam. So you're going to offer a report that's going to be like a proposal, like this is what we have to do to enter the B2B market. This report will show that you know and understand how to operate in a new market, and that you have some innovative ideas that will help you to succeed in your venture. In other words, that you're going to try to put together some kind of competitive advantage. Start by researching the industry that your product falls into in Vietnam. So there's just like some, possible topics. I did not, these are not strict, but there's some examples that you could explore. Start by researching your industry and write a report. It says 4 or 5 pages, so boil it down. Do your research, but then boil the report down to 5 pages to try to win the grant. So if you have any pictures or anything that you can share to improve the understanding, graphics or anything that helps. Okay, so these are the sections of the marketing key, but I'll break down the marketing key as you go along, because you'll get some ideas and you'll want to ask questions later. But the first thing to know is that you're going to try to figure out how to enter this market. So between this week and the next 2 weeks, you'll have the content that supports this task. So I will upload it to you today. So there you go. That's what we're doing with the syllabus. That's what we're doing with the task. We got to get more work done. Last week was kind of slow, and I admit it's my fault. I was optimistic about some of the things that were happening, and I thought that we would be able to start again, at least year 12, right? I had this faith that they would put year 12 at least above this Corona thing, but no, year 12 got thrown back into the mess with everybody else. So I'm going to start with 38. So this is the section in our syllabus, actually bullet point that says factors that determine the feasibility of entering or expanding into a foreign market. So that's what this is, factors influencing the attractiveness of the international markets. An important part of planning a business venture is to assess its feasibility. Feasibility means the chances of success, or just being able to do it. Feasibility is about the potential of a market. So everything starts again with the potential market. How many customers would be interested in this product? Will it provide a level of sales that will result in a profit? So these are questions, always asking your questions. Will it provide substantial profit over the medium to long term? That's a question. I mean, you get companies that are kind of strong when they first show up somewhere. People are kind of interested, and then eventually they get bored with them. Or the cultural difference is so big that it actually doesn't catch on as well as they think it should. So those are questions to ask. Feasibility analysis includes assessing the total market size. One of the ideas on the task, for example, is for a dryer. I always thought this was like a dryer machine. I always thought this was kind of a weird one. I mean, maybe it's the cost of it, I don't know. But everybody has a washing machine, pretty much. But not many people have drying machines. So dryers are not very popular. I have a dryer and we don't even use it. My wife doesn't like it. I don't know why. I like it. It makes my shirts feel better. It's useful if it's raining, right? You don't have to hang up things in the rain. Some areas like Hanoi get quite damp, and I would think that they should want to have a dryer there so they can kill all the mildew. But for whatever reason, I don't really know that it's not as popular. Maybe it's getting more popular, I don't know. But that's a product that I put on the list, for example. So why is this? Is there a potential market? Is there a reason why these things don't work in Vietnam? So understanding the market size, it could be huge. If you have everybody who has a washing machine who buys a dryer, then that would be, that would be a huge amount of sales. Also, assessing competitors, if there's any competitors in the market in Vietnam. Assessing capital requirements to launch and sustain the business. So how much money would it cost? And that depends on the kind of how you establish your retail and your wholesale and your distribution systems in a new country. If you're just selling online, it could be cheaper, but it could be your products are too expensive if you have to add shipping to everything. And sustain the business, considering the experience and expertise of staff and partners. What kind of support would you be able to have on the ground in the new country? A business may have great staff, a product in demand, and established channels domestically, but will it work on a global stage? So yeah, Vietnam is an attractive market. It's got 100 million people. It's an emerging middle class. Growth has been steady for a long time. There's no reason to think that it's not going to continue to grow, and that there's, but the consumers here, they're a little tricky. It's a little tricky to understand the local consumer. So, major factors, at least on our syllabus, that are to be considered by new companies that want to come into this market are the level of consumer demand, as I said. So you have companies for, fast food. They always, the fast food people in the last video complained that there was too much street food. There's too much competition at the low price levels. So the demand for someone who's going to spend 100,000 dong at lunch is quite low. Most people have limited budgets for what they want to spend at lunchtime. So can you meet that budget? Starbucks is successful despite their relatively high price points, which is a reflection of people's disposable income. I think Starbucks is quite successful. People are spending, 100,000 to get coffee and to hang around and sit around somewhere. They like the atmosphere in the shop for some reason. The internet, I guess, is good there. Big windows. But you have to do some research, a little bit of research to find out why. To assess feasibility, the size of consumer demand must be estimated. An estimate for total demand for the same or similar products and a possible market share that could be captured. So there are, it's your research skills that are going to come into play now. So let's see, let's try something. Global washing machine market is spinning Vietnam. I don't know what they're talking about there. 2018. Is spinning Vietnam around. So let's see, accused 2 Asian companies of dumping machines made in South Korea and Mexico. So people are complaining. I have to buy this article? I don't want to buy that article. Anyway, we have market share. Let's see, what do we got? So Sanyo, awareness and usage. Wow, look at that. That's kind of interesting. So they have brand awareness on here too, which is kind of interesting. So it gives you some feeling. So everybody knows these companies, Sanyo, Toshiba, LG, Samsung. Everybody seems to know all the brands, popular brands anyway. And yet they have, Sanyo is for some reason #1. I never thought of them as a popular washing machine company. Toshiba, Panasonic. So there you go. You have part of the washing machine market there to start with. And here it says even they break down between the cities in Vietnam. So they're going to compare which brands people know in each city. I don't see, there's very few differences. Not very much difference at all. Maybe this Aqua brand is more known in Hanoi. And here's one that's quite different, Midea. Nobody here knows it, but in Hanoi it's quite well known. Maybe people care about washing machines more. Interesting. So, yeah, so all of this data is online, really. You don't have to fight for these things so much. But the relevancy of the data is what is mattering to you. So it's, there even, which, look at that. This is which brands of washing liquid are you using or have you used before? Omo, everybody uses Omo. And then you have all these random brands. And I think I used Net once. Net, that was part of the 4%, yeah. So anyway, there's so much market research information, so you can check a little bit about the feasibility of your market from that. Try to understand how big it is anyway. Part of establishing demand is forecasting demand over time and considering economic characteristics that have an impact on demand. Obviously, disposable income is #1. Is there interest, people's spending and saving habits? How often people buy new things? The telephone market probably turns over every 2 years, maybe. The washing machine, I don't know. When I buy a washing machine, I never think about when it's going to be finished or broken. I always just use it until it breaks. So how long do they last? And then if it seems to be working okay, I still might repair it. I might not buy a new one. So get some habits of consumers about how often they buy these machines. So buying habits, that's part of consumption patterns. Consumer demand is related to interest rates and access to credit. If you're buying appliances or electronics, sometimes you can buy things and pay monthly, which a lot of people do. Exchange rates might be an issue for you. You have to check your Australian versus Vietnam exchange rates and economic growth, which is generally good. Current settings and possible future changes. Settings. That means current conditions and possible future changes should be evaluated. Now with Corona, I guess we don't know what's going to happen in the future. Businesses may hire research companies to undertake market analysis and try to, identify factors in the market that they're targeting. They have market research companies like Nielsen, which is a famous one. It's on Nguyen Van Choi, right near here. The pest factors that you're going to study in your task might be related to some of the consumption patterns that people have. Certain things may be restricted by the government, for example. There may be, let's see, consumption patterns. I'm on page 39. There may be political motivations behind the consumption patterns in some countries and regions. That should be clear, but it's not. A company and its products may be boycotted because of their business practices. Is this the first thing that people think about? Such as animal testing, sexism or racist advertising. Is that happening here? This may present an opportunity for a competitor to step in and capture that lost market share. This sounds like an Australian problem more than a Vietnamese problem. Look, the same kind of motivations that people have when they're buying in, any market are going to apply in a foreign market that you're entering. So you're still going to have what motivates the people. Is it a pull product? Is it something that they can be interested in and you can create demand for your product before it's in the shops or make them search for it? Or is it something that you have to put in the shop and also push towards the consumer as they're in the shop? So that applies, push and pull. Willingness to buy foreign products, I guess, might be one difference. That's, something that to consider. But that we have, Vietnamese consumers have trust levels with certain countries that is pretty high. I don't think that social trends in Vietnam, they're not, it's not like nobody cares, but I think it's not a popular reason why people buy is because they care about animal testing or they pay attention to what might be racist advertising. Considering that the population of foreigners here is quite small percentage relative to the total, it's not a huge issue, right? There's not competing groups. So that's pretty weird. In developing countries, there can be a change in consumption patterns. A country may grow in wealth, true, and there may be a new middle class, which is definitely true, who have higher wages and more discretionary income. That's not a pattern, but that just says that they're open and willing to try products that are new. A result of growth in developing economies such as India or China is the increase in living standards and spending for an increasing part of the population. Even just a seemingly small transition from poverty, in quotes, to adequate food and clothing results in greater demand for different products and a significant change in consumption patterns. There are also parts of the population that are reaching a high middle class standard of living. These segments of the population are demanding products and services that are higher quality, better nutritional food, larger houses, cars, healthcare, education abroad. I think that's probably something you could use as a topic. And other services. So all of that is true. I think you can put Maslow's hierarchy of needs into that framework in the sense that once people take care of their basic needs, they move on to security needs. They may look for vehicles that are safer for their children. They may be interested in insurance products that allow them to feel more comfortable or safer. Security, buying a house, making sure they have a good place to live. And then, eventually they get into social products, right? So you have belonging and you have the kind of products that people will want that's gonna make them, that's why Tiger beer commercials always show people hanging out together, saying this beer brings people together. They should have a beer for social distancing at this point. What is the best beer for social distancing? The one you want to drink away from people. Anyway, so my jokes are so much better when you're here. I'm sorry. So as you go up the ladder, you get to the fourth level, and you have status and trying to stand out. Then you're having consumption patterns where people want to golf or whatever and buy Mercedes-Benz type vehicles. And then you get the self-actualization, and this is, you know, people want to travel, they want to go to take trips, diving, you know, a lot of travel probably at that point. So, yes, as you go, you know, as your needs are fulfilled, or as the, you know, as a certain market's needs are fulfilled, they move up Maslow to have demand for different kinds of products and services. Continuing, page 39. China's consumption patterns have changed remarkably in recent years. Chinese people travel a lot now, for example. Chinese people now spend proportionally less on basic daily necessities and more on travel, IT products, housing, insurance, entertainment, and educational services. So that's exactly what I was saying. So this example is not great, but it's, I guess, okay. L'Oreal is a company that's a French company, they were anyway, and they purchased a brand, a Chinese brand called Yuli Sai, which I never heard of, in 2004, and now they are now positioned, they have now positioned it as a luxury cosmetics brand. The ingredients come from Chinese traditions, have been included in the products. I don't know. USA? That sounds like a parking garage, you know. USA. USA. It's a brand. They created a new East meets West lifestyle retail brand, the House of USA. So then they moved. Wow. So they really moved from a cosmetics brand to be offering furniture, bedding, tableware, and jewelry. Every Chinese woman has two sides of beauty. Well, it talks about the, I don't know, I didn't want to accept those cookies. I guess it looks nice, their branding is okay. Anyway, that's the brand that they're talking about. I guess it wasn't, they didn't have a luxury brand, so they needed one, and their strategy for entering the market, instead of trying to create a luxury brand from nothing, was to buy a local brand and then change the positioning. So that's a strategy. That is a strategy. But that's in the strategic alliances, and we're not really there yet. It's also with marketing a bit. You could, yeah. I mean, if you're a big company like L'Oreal and you know how, you know, your skill in L'Oreal is with marketing and promotion more than anything. You know, you don't have to. I mean, sure, maybe they know how to make the cosmetics, but they're not the only one who knows how to make that. But they're really good at branding, so it might make sense for them to buy a local brand. In Western countries, there have been 2 changes in food consumption patterns. 2, only 2, there might be more. There has been a rise in a demand for processed packaged food for value and convenience, and also it's for poor people. Poor people have a hard time getting access to fresh food now. And also a rise in healthy products that target a range of health issues such as gluten intolerance, heart disease, and weight loss. So people are really, the paranoid people. Analysis should also include seasonal patterns in consumption or peaks and troughs around holidays and cultural events. So if you were going to launch a new product, you wouldn't launch it at TED, right? That would make no sense. There'd be too much happening at TED. Most people, I mean, unless it's specifically related to the holiday, maybe you could launch it around TED. But if it's some other product that's not related, like a new phone, I would never do my promotional campaign right around TED. Social media is a useful source of information about changes in consumption patterns. Maybe, doesn't say how. Businesses should monitor social media to follow conversations about brands and consumer preferences to predict the types of products that are regarded as desirable. Part of a fad, that means like a short-term trend, and have become a trend, or have become a trend. So a trend is something that might last or might not last. That's a new wave of interest from consumers, whereas a fad is like the fidget spinner. Here today, gone tomorrow. Cupcakes. Cupcakes were kind of a fad. People liked cupcakes for about 5 minutes. Then a bunch of cupcake shops opened and then they closed. So anyway, there's a lot that can be looked at in consumption patterns, understanding, so it's the same, right? Understanding the market, understanding your consumers, and then finally understanding your competitors in that market. It's the same kind of market research. Competitor activity. So really, right, if you look at this in your syllabus, it's like, it says factors that determine the feasibility. That's the same kind of market research that you would have done in your marketing plan. So market, overall market for the product, test, consumers, and competitors. Competitor activity, page 39. A competitor analysis is an important part of assessing the feasibility of a global venture. To gain an understanding of your target market, as you know, it is vital to have thorough understanding of the competition in the market. The better you understand your competitors, the more effective marketing strategies will be, because you can position yourself and also develop a competitive advantage. Global businesses increase competition. While identifying competitors, a business must include also other exporters and online sellers. So that means when a market opens up, there's also going to be your domestic competitors, but you have to look from the consumer point of view of all the alternatives that they have. So if there's substitution possibilities, if people would rather drink energy drinks than coffee, for example, or where people decide, what people's attitude is about your product and compared with other similar benefits that they get, So when you look at a consumer and you say, okay, you're a dryer. Okay, go back to that. I don't want to use that example because it's one of our possible things, but if you look at the coffee, so you're a coffee company, and you say, okay, you have the amount of caffeine, that's a feature. How the beans are grown, that's a feature. Is it fair trade? That could be a feature that makes people interested in it. But then when you look at what the coffee actually benefits is refreshment. The amount of caffeine will wake you up, or maybe some people just like it for the flavor. Maybe it's a social experience that people enjoy. They don't drink coffee alone, they always drink with someone else. It's a break from the day, it's a relaxing moment. Some people drink tea in England, they don't drink it like I drink this coffee for hours, they just drink it in a really quick, and it's Italy too, they drink a shot of espresso, they drink it very quickly and then move on. So that's because of what they get from it. Maybe they have a short break, they get some kind of benefit. So knowing the benefit that the consumers get from that product might help you understand where else they get that benefit from that's similar. So if the main benefit that people get from coffee is energy, they might substitute an energy drink or a tea or something else for that. So again, you're using your competitors to try to understand your customers, and your customers are helping you understand the different kinds of alternative competitors you might face. Global businesses increase competition, so if people want to buy Nikes from overseas because they only trust Nikes that are real, even though they're made in Vietnam, they're shipped over the ocean 2 times, once to America and then once to Vietnam, that might be an issue. It can be difficult to assess competition in a foreign country. A research company in a target country is a good source of primary data if you have some specific questions that you want answered. You know this already. Primary data based on research and observation. You're in Vietnam, so you can pretend that you're a market researcher here. Secondary data, everything that you use online, different publications. Advertising counts as that. Media reports, all kinds of reports, the industry reports. And then data can be gained from anecdotal, which means that you get data from people who are connected to the industry, not directly, but there are suppliers, maybe customers. You can get that on a review website. Sometimes employees who used to work for the companies, you can get information from them as well. So let's see, they're giving 2 lists, one of how the competitive market might influence positive entry, reasons to enter the market. So few competitors, if it's a really new thing and there's few competitors. Of course, if the competitors are few, then there might not be any demand, so that might be an issue. Products that are easily copied or substituted. So why would that support market entry? Because people can switch. People have a chance to switch, so they might be interested in switching. They're not so brand loyal that they're going to not want to try your product. Customers are unsatisfied with the products on offer. Maybe they think that there's a better way and you have an innovation that they would like to try. Competitors not offering choice or value for money. That can happen, you know, that happened in the airline industry. Vietnam Airlines used to be a monopoly, and so they could just set prices at the, you know, if you want to fly to America, you're just going to pay our price, that's it. But once competition comes, they have to adjust their marketing plan. Also, competitors may be missing a niche in the market. So something, they might have a general market, but there's a niche that's been identified that can be done, used, improved on. Okay, so competitor activity that makes it difficult for market entry. If there's a dominant player in the market, established brands that are part of the country's culture, everybody uses the same soy sauce, it might be tricky to try to bring a new soy sauce in there. Maybe the size of the market, or there'll be a possible price war. If there was a price war with the, you know, are the local competitors, you would not think that there's going to be a price war, but in Vietnam. But if there were, how many resources are companies going to have to support themselves if there was a price war? Price war means that companies lower their prices against each other to try to win market share, and everybody loses profit. Also very difficult if there are relationships, if there are special relationships between local distributors and local companies, and it's difficult for you to make connections and for you to build your relationships with suppliers and retailers. So if there's any kind of block of the integration, called vertical integration. Vertical integration is actually it's not true, but the vertical elements of the distribution chain. So as you go down the distribution chain, you have to deal with retailers and suppliers on both levels. If you have trouble on either side and you're blocked, or there's some kind of monopoly somewhere in the middle of this, it's going to be difficult for you to enter that market. So I think that's a good point. I'm just going to play this video now, and I might comment on it. factors influencing the attractiveness of international markets. What we're talking about.
International markets, like IKEA has done over decades, and businesses like Specsavers have too. What factors do they need to consider when they decide how attractive a particular international market is? A-level business students need to have an awareness of these factors, so we'll have to look at 6 here, which I think are worth adding to your notes. So it might be worth pausing the video as we go through these. I'll just deal with each of the 6 quite briefly. I think the key point to remember though is that the decision by a business to enter international markets is usually a complex one, particularly where they're setting up operations directly in the international market rather.
Did mention notes, and I agree that these might be worth noting down.
Just exporting. And there's always going to be some positive and some negative factors that need to be analysed and weighed up before the decision is made. Let's just work through the 6 factors listed on the slide here, starting with the one top left there, the size of the market and the growth of the market. Now, this is always going to be one of the most important factors. Does the size of the international market, the target market you want to enter, does it justify the investment? Does it justify the risk involved? And also, never mind the overall size, are there particular segments of the market that a business wants to target? How large are they? How fast are they growing? Linked to that, the size of the growth of the market is always going to be linked to the economic conditions in the international market concerned. So this, things like economic growth or GDP and the growth in the disposable income of consumers in each country, they're important indicators of the underlying strength and attractiveness of an international market. And as through our studies we take a look briefly at emerging economies. Emerging economies have proved to be attractive international markets because they've experienced faster rates of economic growth than developed economies. So the likes of Mexico and Chile and Malaysia have seen very fast economic growth compared with developed economies like the UK and the US. In turn, faster economic growth has also created emerging middle classes, people with rising disposable incomes, which in turn means that they can demand products and services of domestic as well as international businesses. So economic growth, disposable income, a key factor. Top right there, ease of doing business, the political environment. This is perhaps a more intangible but still an important factor. How reliable.
When he says intangible, it means hard to measure. Hard to measure, intangible. So that's basically what I was saying before. Are there any weird, is there weird elements in the market, in the how you do business, whether customs, bribes, only one distributor, government-run distributor. Now, if you're a magazine, for example, in Vietnam, that would be true, right? There's only the state-run magazine distributor or newspaper distributor, so you'd have to work with the government. So that would be a question. Is that going to affect the ease of doing business or the legality of doing business?
Well, for example, are the legal systems in the international market? Can the intellectual property of the business be protected? Is there a risk that the intellectual property might be lost? How volatile is the political environment? How often do the laws and regulations change? Does that make a market more or less attractive? Let's run through the stuff on the bottom line, the bottom row here, starting with exchange rates. And of course, we study exchange rates in some detail in A-level business. Clearly, if we're going to be trading in international markets, then it's likely that we are going to be more exposed to changes in exchange rates, fluctuations up and down in the exchange rate compared with our domestic currency. For example, it may be that you earn profits in the international market, but a change in the exchange rate reduces the value of those profits if you want to send them back to the home country. Domestic competition is also a vital factor, and an increasingly important factor, I think, particularly for attractive international markets, because the chances are that if a market, like Malaysia, like Mexico, like China, like Chile, has fast economic growth, it's likely that a business from the UK is going to have to compete against local or domestic competition. And similarly, those domestic competitors are also likely to have some advantages. They may be protected by their government, they may have control or better access to distribution channels, they may have a better understanding, likely to have a better understanding of customer needs and wants. So the strength of domestic competition is another key factor. And lastly, in our list of factors here, infrastructure. This is really all about the physical setup, the physical infrastructure of the market. It looks at areas such as transportation, into, out of, inside the country. The strength and the reliability of data systems, and for example the availability of broadband services. So there we go. Hopefully that's useful. That's just a list of 6 factors. There are others, but I've just listed 6 factors there that definitely influence how attractive an international market is to a business.
Okay, so we'll just go with that for now. Everybody have a great day, and I'll look forward to your feedback on the task. And I'm also going to set actual homework with the deadline for turning it in on Classroom this week. Okay, have a great day.